Hi there, my name is Jolie. Welcome to my review of the 2014 Subaru XV Crosstrek Premium. Up here in the front we have a modest looking grille. You have all halogen lights, including the fog lights at the bottom. Here are the stock 17-inch alloy wheels. I really like this star looking design that you have going on here. At the bottom of the car, above the wheels as well as the side skirts, you have some plastic cladding for your off-road use. Up top, you have some roof rails for more off-road use as well as the possibility of having more storage space. Here's a shot of the rear quarter panel of this car for you to have a better look of the back. Here is a B-roll of the very lovely back hatch. I've seen a review where the owner said you can fit a twin mattress inside of the rear hatch. The lights in the back are also all halogen, however they work really well even at night. I like that the turning signals are orange so that it doesn't blend in with the red taillights. Overall, I like the exterior design of this car. There are no flares or anything weird that jumps out. It's very much of a utility look that just works. It works so well that the later Crosstrek generations didn't really change all that much. Let me know in the comments what you think of the exterior design of this car. Under the hood, we have a 2-liter 4-cylinder boxer engine that outputs 148 horsepower and 145 pound-feet of torque. The fuel economy, according to the EPA, is 25 in the city and 32 in the highway, and 28 combined. My partner drives this car 30 miles daily on a mountainous highway, and she's averaging 28.8 miles per gallon. Paired with this engine is a CVT, and of course, since it's a Subaru, we have their symmetrical all-wheel drive system. Moving on to the interior space. You have a very nice and open interior with great visibility all around. You'll definitely not feel claustrophobic in this car. Here's a quick look of the steering wheel as well as the front row. On the left of the steering wheel, you have your volume controls, skip and go back to previous tracks, the mode button switches between FM AM radio, and the button to the right activates Bluetooth voice command, and at the bottom you have your phone call buttons. And on the right you have your cruise control button and settings. In front we have the gauge cluster. On the left is your tachometer, and on the right is of course the speedometer. In the middle, apologies for not having a footage, but you have your trip A or B mileage as well as the total mileage. And at the bottom of the screen, you have your fuel gauge. To the left of the steering wheel, we have a knob for adjusting the mirrors, buttons for door lock and unlock, and switches for power windows, with the driver's window being automatic up and down. Alright, on to the infotainment. This is already kind of old school for modern standards, but here you have physical buttons and knobs for everything you need, emergency lights, volume knob and a tuning knob, buttons for your radio, and even a CD player. You do have an optional backup camera for the premium trim, but not in this particular car. Here are your knobs for your climate controls, and it cannot get any easier than this. Here's a quick look of the center console area. In the front you have a little cubby for storage. Then you have your shifter, manual parking brake, cup holders, buttons for your heated seats, and storage for your center console. These cup holders are actually a little interesting. The one in the front is deeper, whereas the one in the back is a little shallower. Side note, the pocket in the door handle does not fit my 32-ounce water bottle. Inside of the center console, you have a port for your USB, an aux cord port, and a 12-volt outlet. The center console itself is not that big. You can see my hand here for a comparison, and my partner just keeps some napkins in there. And in front of the passenger seat, you have a normal sized glove box that fits the owner's manual and perhaps some small loose items. Let's talk about the seats. You have manual controls on all of the seats. They're not the most comfy seats in the world, they're cloth, and they do the job just okay in my opinion. When I sit on the passenger seat, my thighs do get tired in a longer trip. Moving on to the back seats. Well, I'm 5'2", so there is a ton of space for me in the back. Jokes aside, I think an average size adult will fit the back seats just fine. Moving on to the cargo area. Unfortunately, the hatch is currently broken, so I'm showing you the cargo space with me being in the back seats. The hatch itself is 22.3 cubic feet and will fit your normal items and groceries just fine. With the seats folded down, you have an abundant 51.9 cubic feet, so much space that you can fit a twin mattress in there according to an owner review. Here is another view of the rear with the seats folded down. Also, you have more storage solutions in the back. You have this hook and this hook. Here are some B-rolls for you to get a better idea of the interior space, and because I shot them and I want to put it in the video. And with that, let's get into driving impressions. We are now in the XV Crosstrek. Let's start this car. Yeah, last night was very cold in California. It was really basically snowing, so I think the car's engine is pretty cold. I am gonna warm the car because I'm a responsible individual. This car is my partner's car. She bought it when it was around 92,000 miles, and now it's 98,537 miles. Subaru has this extended warranty for its transmission because a lot of people's transmissions for this 2014 generation Crosstrek, a lot of the transmissions are failing at 100k miles, and Subaru is kind enough to extend that warranty, so they replace it for free if it happens to fail. And we're approaching 100,000 miles, and we really hope that it's not gonna fail.
Well, we kind of want it to fail so they'll replace it under warranty, but ideally in the best world we don't want my transmission to fail.
Yeah, and the transmission is fine. There's no weird sounds or anything. It still drives relatively smooth. We just hope it doesn't go out like much after that 100,000 miles, because then they won't replace it for free and that would suck. We're now on the road. We're on wet roads, going downhill, testing out the brake. Honestly, the braking in this car is pretty good. It's pretty linear. There's no weird pause or sponginess to it, unlike the 2016 Tiguan. That car is a weird brake feel. It's very sensitive. If you touch it a little bit, it'll brake really hard, and then after that initial sensitive period, you have to press harder to actually brake. But this one is pretty natural. How do you feel about your brake feel?
I personally like a lot of tactile feedback when I'm driving. I make it a not so smooth ride for everyone involved because I like to know that I'm braking and I like to feel it, and this car does that really well, so I'm a big fan of it. Also, this disembodied voice is Jolie's partner, the owner of this vehicle, but I don't want to be on camera.
We were driving this car kind of off-road last weekend. It was on gravel and we drove through some pretty shallow rivers, I guess, and this car handled it really well because of its all-wheel drive system that Subaru has, and I'm a big fan of it. I personally have a front-wheel drive car, and this makes me want to own an all-wheel drive. A little turn here. The steering feel of this car is not too light. Ooh, we drove through some water there. Not too light, not too heavy, kind of right there in the middle, which is really good. Really good for daily driving. I personally really dislike light steering feel cars. It makes me feel like I'm not really driving the car. It feels like a toy car. Heavier ones can be tiring if you drive in the city a lot and do a lot of parallel parking, such as my personal Mazda 3, Gen 4 Mazda 3. When I'm parallel parking, it really makes me feel like I'm like churning a bus wheel. And another thing I like about this car is it's short length. It makes parking really, really easy. This car has a really good turning radius. It's very tight, so again, it makes maneuvering in those tight spaces or parking in tight parking lots really, really handy. And I can never pull those moves with my long hooded Mazda 3.
I'm a huge fan of the turning radius. I used to be really afraid of parking. I still am. I'm not great at parallel parking because I've never had to do it. But with this turning radius that I take full advantage of, I just whip into spots. And now I judge Julie on her
inability
to do that. Yeah, big fan. Big fan of the turning radius.
And I really like the visibility of this car. Tire off the ground. Very nice compared to my sedan, and the windows are pretty big. It's typical Subaru, and I like how the A-pillar is pretty pushed forward so it doesn't block my view, and when I'm turning around parking lot corners, I don't need to like put my body forward and really look around, which I have to do with my Mazda 3 sedan. Yeah, I have no trouble seeing out of the back window, the side windows. Although this car is a subcompact SUV, I think it really handles well. It handles pretty much like a car. When we were driving off-road in the mountains, we had some quite windy turns, and I didn't feel like this car was trailing in the tail at all. It was really good. One thing I don't like about this car is its CVT. It makes this whiny noise that is not really pleasant to the ears. It's like and when you try to go high speed, it makes it sound like the car is struggling, and it likes to stay in those high revs, so you might think your car is like dying or something, but that's just how it sounds. And I'd say this car handles bumps pretty well. Ooh, drive through some water.
I think the ground clearance is providing a lot of the advantages of this car.
I do really enjoy the higher ground clearance of this car, especially being a short person. It's handy to have that heightened visibility, which is also something my Mazda 3 does not have. This car feels really nimble because it's shorter and has that all-wheel drive system. We were driving on wet roads and I felt really grounded, which is always a really good feeling to have driving a car. Again, makes me want to have an all-wheel drive.
Yeah, I feel very safe in this car.
I'm really like talking down on my own car, but don't get me wrong, Mazda 3 is a great car, but visibility and ground clearance is obviously better in the Crosstrek. A note about the steering feel, I would say is not 100% that linear. I feel like there's some sort of delay in it. It's not as direct as in a Honda or in my Mazda, but it's not too big of an issue. It's just a little observation of mine. And something with the acceleration, it's probably common in older cars. You have to really inch the beginning of your acceleration in order to have smooth acceleration. Let's do a little acceleration test here. Can you guys hear the CVT drum? Although it's a nimble car, it's not a very fast car. Oh my god, this BMW really did that. Wish I caught it on camera. Yeah, it's not a very quick car, but it's enough for daily driving. My partner has to enter these very abrupt highway on-ramps, and it does that just fine. You do kind of have to push the car a little bit, but it's alright. Something weird about the steering wheel is this car is really picky about the horn. I don't know if this car specifically, but when I press the horn, nothing happens. You have to like press it really specifically for it to engage.
It's at the bottom.
It's at the bottom. It's not happening though. I don't know.
That wasn't like that before.
Yeah, we pressed it like 20 times just now and no horn.
My back latch is also broken, so this is a fun discovery.
Yeah, the hatch of her car is not working. It wouldn't open when you click the button or when you press the button on your key fob. Something is stuck. We're not really sure what happened. I don't know if it's a common problem along 2014 Crosstreks, and if you know how to solve it, let us know in the comments. Another nice thing about this car is it has paddle shifters. A nice handy thing to have for it's like the lowest trim of this car. Another downside, a little bit of a downside, is this car is not super quiet, but it's not something I expect out of this utility vehicle of Subaru. you can hear the road noise in this car. And,
Yeah.
like your tires, you know, driving through the road. The speakers of this car is also not very great. Sound quality is like muffled.
To put it crassly, it sucks. It
Okay.
sucks. I
Alright.
use Bluetooth most of the time. I'll have my phone volume at all volume, and my volume within the car has to be about 20 to get to the point where I'm like, yeah, I can hear the lyrics well enough.
Automotive journalists tend to bash on this subcompact SUV segment, and they're like, oh, it's useless, blah blah blah. I don't really agree, because it's really useful for shorter people like us. Having that visibility and ride height is really, really nice. And sometimes you just don't want a big car. And this car is so nimble, it's just nice and big enough for my lifestyle. Alright, I am showing you guys the front view to give you a little idea of how it looks like. And I'm gonna stay silent. Alright, owner's thoughts. What's good and what's bad?
I'm the owner, the disembodied voice once again. Overall, I really enjoy this car. I describe myself as someone who doesn't care much about the aesthetics of cars and like whether they get dirty or not. So to have a rugged vehicle for me is really important because it's like, it's designed to get dirty. I like how I can feel the ground beneath me. It feels very grounded in that way. It does everything it's supposed to in the way that it's designed. My only complaints are that the sound system isn't great, which is not something I originally would have thought I cared about, but I do enjoy listening to music because I commute every day. But I do like all my tactile buttons, which is a thing that is like almost becoming obsolete at this point due to the increase in technology in cars and the screens and all that. Even the newest Crosstrek has this giant screen. It looks like someone put a 12-inch iPad in their car, and I can't stand it. So I like all the tactile buttons. I like the old school. There's still a CD player in this car. Like, I think that's amazing. Overall, though, great vehicle. And yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.
Final thoughts on the 2014 XV Crosstrek. It's a nice little car, very nimble, good visibility, good ride height, drives like a car, which is really nice. It has really good cargo space, actually. With the hatch, it's really easy to load things. Good handling and comfort it's okay. It's good for a daily driver, but for me, on longer drives, I do feel a little tired sitting in these seats. I like the ruggedness and utility of this car, but with that said, this car is not at all luxurious or refined in any way. Alright, thank you for watching this video. Tell me what you like or dislike about the XV Crosstrek, and stay tuned for future videos. Thank you, see you next time.